All right, so people were asking how to make your own Metasploit module, and that's here. So we teach an exploit development class. The first thing you have to do is develop an exploit. And exploit development, you do something like fuzz a target, find something like a buffer overflow, and then you figure out how to inject some assembly language and execute a command. And typically at the end result of that, you have a proof of concept in some language like Python that just does something simple like launch Notepad or calculator or something, and then you're done. You've got an exploit. But Metasploit, of course, is just a process of translating that proof of concept into the right format to be fed into this Metasploit framework. So here, here's an example. There's this thing called VU player, and it's got a buffer overflow. This is a music player. And so here's somebody's proof of concept in Python. This is typically what you'll find. Somebody will put a post up and say, I have found a vulnerability and here's my proof of concept. So this thing does whatever the developer wanted it to do. And this thing will use Metasploit actually to make the payload he used. And then it creates a ROP chain, which is how you overcome address-based layout randomization. This is a series of addresses. So instead of injecting machine code and running it directly, it uses code that Microsoft already put on the system. It jumps to this address where it finds a few commands and this address where it finds a few commands, and it pastes together the necessary exploit out of these commands. That's a return-oriented programming chain. And so here's the Python that does that. Here's the buffer that sets it up. So you have starting code. And all you do is you take this information and put it in the right format. So first, of course, you run the proof of concept as it was to make sure it works. There's no point trying to convert it to Metasploit until you made sure it works. And once it works, now you just have to write a Metasploit module. And Rapid7 gives you a template to give you an idea. Most of this is just labels and like the help message and stuff. So that's pretty easy. And so you fill in this stuff, which is all the labels and the details. And then you have to add the ROP chain. So to figure out how to put a ROP chain in, not every attack has one. The simplest thing is just go find a working module someplace with a ROP chain in it. So here's some other exploit with a ROP chain. And if you go down here, there it is. So it shows you how to do it. So just copy this code and feed in the ROP chain in this thing called ROP gadgets. And then you have to add the exploit function. So here's an example of a simple stack buffer overflow. And again, you can see how to do it. This one didn't have a ROP chain, but it's a proper Metasploit module, and it shows you how to put in this stuff, where you have text up to a start to have the buffer overflow, and then the rest here. So you figure out the format of that just by comparing it to other exploits. So it really is sort of like, filling in a form. And when you're done, you've got a custom exploit. It's not what you'd really call real programming. It's just minor translating from one thing to another, and you just have to be a little careful and go through a few trial and error until you get it, but then you can have a custom exploit. One thing that I was glad to finally write up where I can find it is how to add a custom exploit to Metasploit, because it's frustrated me. In here, you just have to put it in the right directory. So if you search for it, you'll find it if you put it in the right directory and then execute this reload all command inside Metasploit. That will hunt through all the directories for exploits. And now you can use your canned exploit to exploit the server. And instead of being stuck with just the attack that the proof of concept had, you now have all those different payloads in Meterpreter to add to it. So you see this every time something comes out, like the Bluekeep exploit. First there's a vulnerability report, then somebody has a proof of concept, then somebody has a better proof of concept, and a few weeks later somebody has a Metasploit module. That's how it goes. Anyway, let me stop this one and post it up.